we just bought the Windaloo 54. We're so excited. We're at the Annapolis Boat Show right now. And in just a couple of weeks, life is about to change for us. We're going to be live-aboard cruisers, and we could not be more excited.
I'm Paul Winkle. I've just sailed across the Atlantic from France, where we brought the boat to the Annapolis Boat Show, and just had an incredible crossing at the wrong time of the year and the wrong weather, but the boat handled amazingly, and so we're excited to be here and excited to show off Second Star, which is our baby. We love it.
So where did the name Second Star come from?
That was a labor of a lot of research and thought, and
we're not very good at naming things, and Second Star was one of the ones that had come up. And my daughter-in-law and I accompanied Paul on a trip to London, and I took her to some ancient baths on Robert Street. And we went into this place, and it was like a kind of a brownstone, and you went up the stairs, and it was definitely staged. So it was kind of a museum of some sort. We asked the lady, and she said, this desk is where J.M. Barrie wrote Peter Pan in 1904. And we looked at each other, and we were like, oh my gosh, we had goosebumps from our head down to our toes. So that was a decision where Second Star came.
And Second Star to us really represents, represents the idea of living a grand adventure and staying young and adventuresome.
And there's magic and pixie dust and pirates. Well, hopefully no pirates, but all kinds of fun stuff.
So we chose a performance cat, not initially though. We had some hesitations about it. In fact, because our experience has been primarily more of cruising and chartering, we thought what we wanted was a production, comfortable, charter-style boat. And the more that we have sailed and the more that we have chartered, one of the things that we realized, in fact, we had an experience where we had kind of landed on a certain boat, and we decided to charter it in the Bahamas for a week. We had great wind and the beautiful sailing conditions. And although the boat was comfortable and beautiful, it was not fun to sail.
But I think the performance catamarans, in our mind, were too much boat for us. Like, we didn't want to pop hulls, and we didn't want to
be exposed a lot to the environment, having to wear
seemed too much, too complicated.
It seemed kind of dangerous too.
It seemed kind of dangerous for sure.
So we were concerned about that. But the part that we love sailing. We enjoy the act of sailing and the experience of sailing. And sometimes you just don't get that on a more production style boat.
We go to bed and we would watch YouTube videos of every single boat, and we had lists and checklists, and they had to fill all of our criteria and stuff. And we started watching The Great Circle, and this was all during the pandemic too. And we kept looking at it thinking, we can do this. Like, we could absolutely do this.
Yeah.
And then we were like, we want to do this. We're going to do this.
The performance of the boat was really important for us. The experience of sailing, we really wanted to have that hands-on feeling of sailing, the feel for the wind and the boat moving through the water. That was really important for us. But we also wanted to be comfortable on the boat. We didn't want to sacrifice really cramped quarters. And
I think one of the first performance boats that we had seen, the rooms downstairs were so small. It was like it was very cramped. And it didn't look comfortable, and you didn't want to live on it. Like, it'd be fine for a week maybe, but you didn't want to live on it.
As we looked into it more, the other thing that became very important to us was sort of the advancement in technology within boats. The eco-consciousness of the boat, I think, became really important to us too. We didn't understand until we really researched it, how a boat is constructed and how that impacts the environment is really important. The solar, and then not using fossil fuels became really important. We live in Sarasota, Florida. We just experienced a huge hurricane that went right over our house. The environmental impacts, global warming are a real thing. And so whatever we can do to help reduce those impacts in the environment were really important to us. So that's when Windaloo really came top of mind to us, was sort of that ecological advancement. Most people who sail are environmentally friendly, but it's more than just the sailing part of it. It's actually the construction of the boat. It's the engines themselves.
Generating your own power. Like we could, when you were out there, just even doing the Atlantic Crossing, you had solar that charged your batteries. You didn't run the generator really at all.
Right.
You know.
The boat itself there's really very few sacrifices, if any. The boat is very spacious. We have convenience appliances throughout. Everything is electrified. We've got convection stoves and ovens and microwaves and dishwashers and washing machines, ice makers, all electronic navigation systems. It's a very advanced boat that is incredibly sustainable, both from operations and also in the construction. I think that's a really important thing to consider. And the way Windaloo really approaches it, by reducing that carbon footprint by close to 50%, is pretty amazing. The
Handover.
the handover experience. Like when you pick up a new boat and you haven't seen it, and we did do a factory tour when the boat was under construction, but
I was so excited.
that was so exciting. But to actually get to the dock, and there's your brand new boat, completely finished, sitting in the water, ready to go, is just I can't even describe that experience. It is beyond amazing and exhilarating. The handover experience was much better than, not that we had high expectations to begin with, but it was even better than what we had expected. So going through lots of detail, we recorded everything too, just so we wouldn't forget.
I think they sort of downplayed the handover experience, but it was really outstanding.
It was
Really outstanding.
Yeah.
We really took advantage of Windaloo's experience and knowledge in how to prepare the boat. It left very little for us to have to try to figure out. So I think that was a really good big part of it. And then you do your research. You keep watching YouTube videos and do your research. And so we made lots of lists and we had lots of questions. And Windaloo was great. Like they, no matter what it was, whatever questions we had, they were definitely there to help us out and do it all. I think one of my favorite things that they did, I believe it was called pontoon bashing. And that was the best thing I have ever done, full stop, period. That was absolutely great.
Yeah.
I was able to maneuver this 54-foot boat and put it in sideways into the dock, and dock it.
360.
We were doing
turning out
quick
docks.
cruise. It was absolutely amazing.
And it's very different than a diesel-powered catamaran when you're operating the engine. The torque is very responsive. The boat is light and moves quite easily.
Absolutely outstanding. Really, really great.
We started the handover experience with a 5-day sail across the Mediterranean, and that was our first sail on the boat. Windaloo had taken the boat out and prior to us, just to work out some of the kinks in advance of us arriving. So I would say 95, 98% of all issues were resolved before we even got on the boat. And we spent 5 days sailing with Pierre, who handles the
After-sale service.
after-sale service for Windaloo, and it was great to spend time with him.
Super nice, super knowledgeable, just like easy to talk to. It doesn't get flustered.
So we felt very prepared after that five-day sail, and it continued beyond that too. We, the whole team at Windaloo was incredibly helpful and responsive to any issues or anything that needed to happen. They were, really very careful that the boat was in perfect condition for us to make that big sail across the ocean.
It looks pretty good back now, that's for sure.
Yeah. So the Atlantic crossing was an incredible experience. We had just received the boat and just picked it up in France. We're just learning how to use it, and so that whole part was just amazing. Sort of the challenge of the trip across the Atlantic was not the right time to sail across the Atlantic, and it was not in the kind of the right route to sail across the Atlantic. So we did something sort of unusual, and so the winds were challenging. Every day it was not downwind sailing, rarely downwind sailing. It was every day there was a different wind direction and different sail plan and different sea state. So in some points it was quite sporty and challenging, and other days it was, frankly, a little monotonous and without wind. Thankfully, we had the electric engines on board. We were able to move forward at all points, and still use very little fossil fuels on our trip.
The other thing is that you guys all worked.
I think having Starlink on board is just a game changer for cruisers now. And I was able to work nearly full time on the entire Atlantic crossing. Before, you would sort of leave the world behind as you sailed. Now you can kind of take the world with you. There's some pros and cons to that, but for me, still working, that was a really important part.
We tease that we watch a lot of YouTube videos, and we definitely do. And so a lot of people have been buying performance catamarans lately.
And just new boats.
And new boats. And they've got their YouTube channels, and we watch. So we were like slightly terrified when we were getting on this boat that it was just going to start falling apart and leaking and just disaster, before us. And we've not found that at all. And we found anything that we've needed, they're, really responsive.
Yeah, it's been all minor stuff too. Nothing majors.
Yeah.
Even after the crossing.
We had 5 criteria, and was comfort and style was still really important to us, and safety, because we were afraid that the performance boats might have been a bit too much for us, so we really needed to feel safe, and we really wanted it to be eco-advanced.
So the electric engines were important to us. We talked a little bit before about the ecological advancement of the boat and being environmentally conscious and being friendly to the environment. So those were all important considerations for us too. But even beyond that, I'm not a diesel mechanic, and one of the things that was sort of intimidating to me was actually having to maintain and take care of diesel engines. So that's something that I don't have experience in, and I really didn't have a desire to become a diesel mechanic. So there was actually kind of a nice positive to the sort of the low maintenance and ease of operation of electric engines. Overall, the electric engines, so just from the ecological point of view, from the ease of operations and the low maintenance, but there's also something kind of nice when you start up your engines and you're motoring out to sail through the marina, and it's perfectly quiet. There's not a.
Here, you can actually. I bet you could start the engine right now. Engine's wrong. You don't hear anything.
Nothing. Yeah. So it's incredible. There's no noise. It's almost like you're sailing. You're just sort of gliding along quietly.
Yeah. Well, we were at the boat show, and we were going around, and we were, learning about the different boats, and they'd open up the engine rooms, and you'd go down there, there were these massive engines in there, and then we get to Windaloo. Oh, where is everything? And there's this little engine, back in the corner, but the engine room is this massive storage compartment. And then, so I was nervous. I was like, what do you have to do to take care of the engines? You just make sure there's coolant. That's what you need to do. And I was like, okay, we could do that. We also love the hydrogeneration.
That's true. So there's so many backups, So obviously you're a sailboat, so you can sail to places. We have the electric engines. We have the solar power that charges the batteries to run the engines. We have the diesel generator, which we only use if we have to. And then we have hydrogeneration, which we use quite a bit on the Atlantic crossing, which was amazing. We were able to generate significant battery power through hydrogeneration. So there's lots of great backup systems to provide power. We do not feel like we've made any compromises, even either in the performance, in selecting a performance boat, and in selecting a boat that has electric engines. We feel it's all been plus, plus, plus.
The one thing I love is the chart plotter, or some those chart plotter, but it's a windowless system. So it tells you, all the way along, like, where you are with, how much your engines are burning, your energy flow, I think is really interesting.
So interestingly, even right now, sitting here in the marina, we have 1 kilowatt positive energy balance just from the solar that's on the boat right now, with systems, actually, some of the electric systems and the equipment running. Yeah, Starlink. We have a positive energy balance just sitting here in the marina.
Right. So we love it. We think it's really great. And it's super easy to use, and it's all, really very clear. So we've absolutely loved the whole electric thing, and we love the whole renewable energy. And so we're going to come up with some kind of a goal for ourselves of how little fossil fuel that we can possibly burn. And, but
Well, and our goal is, we'd love to, we don't know, we'd love to sail around the world. So that's something that we're thinking of doing in 2026.
a tank of gas.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll do it on a tank of gas, but what we're going to do as little as we possibly can. How to sail around the world with as little fossil fuel as possible.
Absolutely. And not be like crazy people,
Yeah.
Or than we already are.